On today's episode of the podcast, I have a fantastic guest in Hannah Parke. Hannah is part of this scrappy voiceover group that I've been highlighting so many of the people from because the people I talk to the most, and I love the things that they do. And she is such a fantastic guest. She talks so much about her experience in voiceover, getting into it, what it's been like to stay motivated through it. And one of my favorite pieces was actually her talking about a very significant time through the pandemic where she had some pretty big brain surgery, and it impacted her in such big ways. And she also discusses a bit of how she deals with the disability that she has that sometimes is unseen. And this resonates so much deeper with me now than when I recorded. It's been a long time since I recorded this episode in order to bring it to you because I've discovered when I recorded it, my audio completely went out. Her audio was fantastic the entire way through, but my audio did something terrible, and it's all robotic and garbled and awful. So I had to go back and dub over every bit of my part. And when I say I'm winging it, this is going to be a great episode to see how much I'm really just winging it. And I did discuss with Hannah, I want to make sure that this episode highlights the fantastic talent that she is, that it respects her and her professionalism. And I also let her know it does sound a little silly, like having me go in, but she said that's totally fine because that's on brand for everything we're trying to show. So once again, she finds a way to be such an impressive person and such a great, fantastic cheerleader to have on your side. And I started discussing this, but then I got sidetracked to talk about the garbled things. I recently myself had a very significant diagnosis. Turns out your boy has multiple sclerosis. And that's something that I need to discover how I do this job differently with because I am getting some physical limitations. I'm running into some physical limitations in how I do things. It doesn't change that I can still perform. It just changes how I interact with it in some ways. So, this is a fantastic and timely discussion for me to get to re-listen through, to get to process the audio, to get to reconsider like the place that disabilities, sometimes unseen disabilities, have within this industry and the performances that can come from a place of honesty around those. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Please, please, please forgive some of the audio garbles that stayed in there because I didn't want to come back and dub over me going, ha, when she says something, or genuine laughter is tough. So I wanted to be as authentic as possible, but also upfront with y'all. So without further ado, here's Hannah and her episode. I'm just kind of winging it.
I love it. I love it. Winging it.
Literally, like, that is the thing, but I'll do this in the most cheesy way possible. Hannah, I am so freaking excited that you have chosen to jump in with this podcast, and you are amongst the people I was super excited to get on here. This is going to be a really good time. I mean, thank you so much.
I am so pumped. Thank you so much for having me. I know that you've had so many people that I aspire to be like on here, so this is like just so cool.
It is so fun that you said that because I think of, in my circles, I like having people who are around me who are a step above me, like who I look up to, people who are on the same peer level as me, and people who are behind that I want to help move forward and get on the same level. And you are 1000% one of those people who I look up to, and I want to be more like. Just getting to see you, how fun you are, your social media platform, everything is just so great.
You know that you just made my life, so thank you. I very much look up to you. I see what you're doing is insane in every facet of what you do, and I'm always inspired by you, like truly.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you so much for being on here. You caught me off guard with that. Okay, how did you get involved with VO, the scrappy group, how we know each other, all of that. What say ye?
Yas. Well, I know you through our lovely Scrappy VO collective. Created by who I knew created it is Jenna, and Jenna and I are from the theater world together. So I guess my introduction to VO is truly through Jenna, and we had done eight, and she will agree, the worst production of Heathers ever existing together. When we were both like itchy bitty babies. I think we were technically both still in school in college when we did this production. Um, let's just say that we were on a stage with like a 500-seat audience, and we all weren't mic'd. So that's kind of what I mean. It just wasn't a very healthy experience.
I was gonna say, did you guys just have to belt
Oh, we
all the way
just
through it?
oh, we just and that's a Skrelt City show. So we were just like, so, but yeah, so that's how I know Jenna. And I had made probably in like 2018, 2019, a really not great little demo, quote unquote demo that was like,
So you just had to sort of
oh,
piece it together?
it was, and I just didn't, I had never really listened to anybody. So I was doing like a theater version of voiceover, which is not the same. And so I was just like, whatever. And then not to get like too deep, but I am Philadelphia's epileptic actor. Hey,
Yay!
yeah, right. And so in 2022, I had to have 4 brain surgeries within a year. And as I was like dealing with all of, I can't be on stage right now, what is my career? What is my life? I started to be like, voiceover. Voiceover is sitting down in the safety of a padded room. But like,
So if you go down, you're going down in like a
going
soft
down,
padded
like,
area.
yes. Yeah, and it was like it can be on my schedule, my time. And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do on this last surgery, which was July 2022. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And I started really in my downtime, my recovery time, like researching everything. And I remember reaching out to Jenna and saying like, hey, I'm in it. I really want this. Can we meet up? And of course, Jenna, being the incredibly wonderful human that she is, said, yeah, let's go to a coffee shop. She's my neighbor. So we met, and I had this huge list, and I came in with this bandana on my head because I had 50 staples still in my head from when I had because you get them out 2 weeks after you had surgery. So I know I had brain surgery within those 2 weeks or whatever. And I went in and I was like, I'm ready. And she was like, clearly you are. And I went with my soon-to-be husband to wherever, the Home Depot, and I bought these nice little blankets, and we came home, and I wasn't allowed to stand on the chair. So I was like pointing to him on where to put everything. And I was like, yay, let's do this. And I joined the Discord in, I guess, August of 2022.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do this. And I thankfully had a lot of downtime. So I feel like I put myself so hard into winging it because I didn't have anything else to do. Like, I couldn't lift I wasn't allowed to put my head underneath my waist. I wasn't allowed to lift anything, for like a couple months. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna start rehearsing or start, auditioning. So yeah, that's answer to your first question.
Okay, there is just so much that I want to unpack within that. So, clearly, theater background, you are a performer. Is there something that was just like, you know what? I can sing pretty good. Maybe I can do this.
I went to a performing arts high school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I'm from Tennessee. Great and not great, right? And then I moved up to Philadelphia to go to the University of the Arts, and then got my BFA in theater and musical theater. And then right after that, I went on a national tour of a big musical, and then just started doing like theater, like professionally in New York and Philadelphia, like right out of school.
Yeah, and how did that transition into voiceover? It seems like it was just kind of always there, hovering in the background.
I think when I realized that at the time I couldn't be on stage, I needed to find a performance outlet. And all of the sudden, through the grace of God or what, or Jenna, it kind of came to me that I saw all these people getting to perform daily. And I was like, because there's auditions in theater, but as anyone who knows theater, they're sparse. It's not like on these platforms where we see in between 6 and 50 auditions a day. Like you might see 6 auditions in like 3 weeks, if that. So it's kind of like, I guess to me it was like voiceover. I get to perform. I get to, yeah.
Yeah, you get to perform and you get to more frequently chase opportunities. Because that's all audition really is, chasing opportunity.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. And I love that you have a neighbor who's in the community. Like is she your physical neighbor?
I think she actually lives like 4 blocks from me. And it's funny that we did not keep super in touch after that horrible production of Heathers. And I knew of her like online and all this kind of stuff. And we had kind of been friends, but just our lives didn't go down the same paths. And then it's so great, like getting now to like be friends with her again. I'm like, wow. And now, now she's moving to Thailand. But like at the same time, like having this, internet, daily correspondence with her is just like a true gift.
Right. And as someone who's never met her in real, or any of the people in our group in real life, actually there was one person I did meet in real life, but for the most part I haven't. It's weird how connected strangers on the internet can be, and you don't feel like strangers. Just feel like people who have worked together all the time. And for me, I feel like I came from corporate world, 9 to 5 type jobs. And this feels like it has a similar vibe to the people I chat around the water cooler with, just buddies.
I don't know if this goes into the same question or if I'm skipping ahead, so let me know. But this Scrappy Collective is like what kept me going, because not only did I learn, I was new to Discord. I'm not a gamer. I wasn't allowed to game growing up, being from Tennessee. So like that wasn't allowed. And so when I found out like, oh, it's through Discord, what is this? And I mean, for people who are listening who don't know what Discord is, I mean, you meet like obviously through texting and like through messaging, but also we meet up as for these master classes and just group hangouts. So it is kind of like, I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think like, wow, I've never met you in like 3D. Yeah. And like this group, what's so different about this group and theater, and not to take a poo-poo on theater, but there's so little jobs in theater sometimes that it feels the mindset of scarcity. And the competition is what, not only what you look like, or not what you sound like, but also what you look like. And it's very different. And when I joined this collective, everyone was so like cheerleading for each other and happy and wanting to help each other out. And I think a bunch of that is because of there's so many jobs, but also we're all sitting at home in our booth for hours alone with maybe a nice trickle in from our cat, but like there's just not a lot of like human interaction. And I feel like this community is like, oh, it's unbelievable,
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, because the group definitely has changed. When I look at all the places I'm going, I will always operate in blissful ignorance until somebody says, hey, you're not necessarily wrong, but here's potentially a more correct, or I've hit this blockade and this is what I did, and I just love the different perspectives.
Absolute same.
So I'm curious, you had a very significant medical situation come up, and you're the official epileptic performer of Philadelphia. Is that officially in your marketing material?
It's funny, like it's such a double-edged sword, because sometimes it's definitely not. It's like I definitely not, because a lot of people, there's a lot of preconceived notions about people with disabilities, especially like invisible ones. And, a lot of people think like, "Oh, it's unsafe to put her on stage." It's absolutely not. I've worked for years and years having seizures. It's like, it's fine, And so it's like I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I know that I'm sickly cool to be on stage no matter what, and you can put me in front of a bright light and I'll be fine. I don't have that kind of epilepsy. But so it's hard that, so many people have seen one episode of ER about epilepsy and they think they know everything about it. And it's like, nah, you don't. We're all specific humans.
Yeah, and I've been researching a lot more myself on just accessibility and representation in all forms of entertainment industry. And our industry, I feel like, is in a great place to shine a spotlight on opportunity and availability of projects. So I would love to hear if you have any stories or experiences that sort of talk through what it's been like in this avenue for you. Because I know there are times within things like theater or stage performances where there are a lot of preconceived notions or assumptions. So I'm curious what voiceover's been like from that perspective.
It's actually been so great because not I mean, it's weird to say, but like any of these clients, they don't know it, and they don't have to, and they don't need to. It doesn't, and like that's really cool. Like I get to show up in my booth on my time, and I think that's just what's fantastic is nobody needs to know. And I think that I not to compare disabilities in any way, but I feel like I got it pretty easy in a lot of ways. And like in the fact that people don't see it and they don't have to know. But it's felt like a really cool, safe place for me, and I think that's why I really chose it. So it's been good.
Yeah, so you've kind of already touched on this already just in the space of all this, but what does winging it mean to you? How has that shown up in anything, whether that's stepping into voiceover, which sounds like your fiance was helping you tremendously, and I guess above and beyond, what has winging it been like for you?
I think when I think of the term winging it, when you first asked me to do this, I thought of that day of this booth being put up and me bandaged head pointing at the ceiling. To me, that in my life is winging it. It being like, there are no answers. And it's grassroots, baby. We're making it happen and we're just figuring it out as we go. Like, that's what it's been like this whole experience. Because, it's researching on as many YouTube videos on this microphone that you can and realizing that like start today, motivation or action precedes motivation. Like you just have to go. And I think I very much felt like even with my demos, I made my own demos. And I had a lot of background in like music working and like making my own music. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I can do it.
Yeah, how difficult could that possibly be?
It was very difficult, but I'm thankful that I had a little bit of experience in it because I was just like willing to sit down and make it work. I also started out using GarageBand for like the first like 6 months of using voiceover, which is don't do that. But I didn't know. I was winging it. So, but I think like yeah, I and especially with like pay to plays, that's exactly where you learn to wing it. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I like the people who are like, when it comes to demos and samples and stuff, being like, I just add a new one a week. I just throw some new stuff down and see what bites. And just trying these new things out in like a really positive, who knows? Let's see. I guess that's what winging it means to me.
Yeah, nice. It's like, it really is. There are no rules. You can do whatever the hell you want. If I wanted to just record and go blah, 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 blah into the microphone, I could. And that doesn't mean it's going to book me any jobs, but nothing's going to stop me. I can just do that. So I like how much you gain knowledge from other people, especially since like Jenna is a freaking powerhouse of generous information. And the interactions I've had in our group, and it makes me think of winging it, not just winging it, but the scrappy group that we find ourselves part of. There is so much scrappiness to it and how everybody kind of pieces everything together. You pointing to your fiance and saying, not there, move it somewhere else. And I look around at my own booth and I see I have acoustic panels that I just kind of threw together one day because I had some things here and they're not official or what I want, but like they're what I had. And there is something to just using what you have and making it work with what you're looking to do. It's not going to win any beauty contests, but it's going to absorb some sound.
I have one of those corner. This is like a corner of my room. Like, and so I didn't have a closet. So I was like, okay, I guess we're gonna do this with. They call it like a trifold booth or whatever. It's just like a triangle, and I'm like, yay! That's what I got.
It's a trifold booth, so it is a triangle.
It's a triangle.
So is it like an official booth now, or are you still like PVC pipes and blankets?
It's literally. So I have a drop ceiling. So imagine like, you know, the drop ceiling has those little rods. I literally bought these little hook things and I just hung the blankets around it. It cost me $45 for my booth in total because and anyone listening, sound blankets are just moving blankets. Don't let them fool you. Go to Home Depot. They're the same dang thing. They're not as pretty. They're the same dang thing.
Not as pretty without the eye hooks.
Yeah, without the eye
hook.
You could figure that out. Just a punch through those bad boys. But yeah, so I have not needed to update this booth at all. I also have to send a lot of self-tapes for theater from this same room. So this comes down in like a maximum of 2 minutes and goes back up in 2 minutes. Like I can take it down and record and then put it back up. Like, so that's what I like about it.
You're in the clear to make that maintenance yourself now, right? You don't need to
Oh, yeah.
You're okay.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm back on stage now, so it's like, you know, all good.
All good.
So with that, I'm curious because there's so many times in this industry where I both value the input and advice from so many professionals who have been freaking killing it in this industry. I see so much like TikToks, YouTubes, all the different content that's out there. There are so many of them who would say, moving blanket booth, you're not going to book any real work off of that. You're not going to be able to do the high capacity things. You need to get yourself the $1,000 whisper booth, but even then you're still going to have to edit it. All these things that have felt, they're things that I personally have internalized and created barriers and apprehensions that I needed to get past. You've been doing exceedingly well, and I'm curious, what is your booking like? What are some brands that we could catch you in? Because you're booking within your $45 booth and you're just kicking ass because nobody's going to tell Hannah not to do the thing.
When I first started, I was with a really not so great like $40 mic from Amazon. But I'm in this crappy little booth with my $40 mic and I booked a spot with the NFL, BetMGM, Pfizer, Pixability, and like a bunch of like little like startups. So but like I got these like bigger names with my $40 mic, 0 isotope in my little booth. But by then I'd made a little money. So I was like, I need to buy isotope. And isotope I think is like $150.
Straight up.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And I got a friend of our friends, his name is Chris. I got him to help me set up my isotope so it would for my room. And I also got a better mic, but I got like the fake brand of the nice one. I got a Cinco, which is like the not super great. It's like awkward cousin. Yes. and honestly, my I feel like I need to knock on wood like 100 times. Like since then, my like short listing rating went up, and my job rating or amount of jobs I got went up from I think isotope because with GarageBand because I was using GarageBand without isotope and now I use Reaper with isotope, I had to turn my noise gate up really high and I think it was clipping things and it was like low and like, you know, all that kind of stuff. new mic, isotope, made it so like I was definitely hitting more stuff. And I guess recently I am now doing work with Regal, Folgers, Snapchat. And then, but yeah, and I did my first live directed session, which I literally about peed my pants, but in the best way.
So tell me more about, hang on, first off, all these unknown industries that you suddenly find yourself voicing for with your knockoff Wish.com microphone, the Cinco D2, and the $45 booth all around you, and you're still doing all this stuff. What has been the biggest contributor, first off? What's been the biggest contributor to, like, getting to that next level? Because I know, or I assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, when you first started doing this with your bootleg demo, and I'm just using these phrases to kind of poke fun at the big creators who say this isn't the way you do things, and not to make fun of them. Like, I really do respect them, just sort of spitballing and discussing this this method. What took you to the next level in all of that? When did you feel like, hell yeah, I can do this?
I think it was a combination of the new mic but really it was the isotope, because isotope is Photoshop for your voice, and having Chris help me set it up so I wasn't over EQing and over noise gating and like all that kind of stuff, and it just changed the clarity of my sound, and it let me be able to play and not worry so much. Like I had to do so much less editing and so much more worrying, and like honestly, I live in Philly, and outside of my my booth is as a park, and there's children playing and there's construction, and I was just spending so much time being like, please be quiet, like I need to whatever. Isotope just cleans that baby up. It is like a vacuum. It's gorgeous. Isotope, cast me. But like, yeah, so I think that once I got my stuff like better is when I feel weird talking about money, but it's the first time I saw my first $4 sign job was after I got isotope. Yeah. And it was what I had to do my live directed session, and it was so funny. Again, thankful to Jenna, kind of talked me through, because I at first, when I got the message saying, you booked this job that's going to require a live directed session, I think I'd done like almost 30 jobs before I booked one that had a live session. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't even want to do it at first because I was so scared of a live directed session. I was like, I don't, I'm so scared. And it's funny because I'm a live performer. So I was like, what? And the best thing I heard, I reached out to the Discord group and said, y'all, please give me something so I'm not so scared. And the biggest thing that I got was, you already booked the job. This isn't an audition. Just go in there and play. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. And because to me, it was like, I need to win this. You already did. Like, and it was so funny. Oh, is that a bad word? They after I did like my first like 2 reads of the copy, I was with like the editor and the director and the whatever, and they were like, oh, clearly this isn't your first time. And I was like, oh, and I didn't say this, but I was like, it is my first time. And they're like, we just love working with professionals. And I was like, whoa, I guess you really can fake it till you make it, which is also what winging it is to me. Yeah, I was like, thanks. I was like, yeah, I'm having such a good time. And I was like, by the end of it, we were like, I think that it took like 15 minutes of the hour. They were like, well, I guess we could just do it for fun in a British accent if you wanted. I was like, no, let's do it in Southern. We were like we was like a joke by the end. Like, we were like, okay, great. That was awesome. Thanks. Bye. So funny. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in the land of all of this, something I have found a lot of creatives really struggle to do, and I'm not putting this on you, but I am curious. How do you celebrate your wins? Because you've had a lot. Following you on Instagram, I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, I can't wait, like, what's going on in Hannah's world, because it's probably really cool and chaotic.
Oh, it's funny. I will say before the actual question, it's funny. I definitely got hit with a lot of jobs in like the last 2 weeks, which was so awesome. But it was like overwhelming because I all of a sudden went, when do you audition again? Because I haven't gotten that that balance, because a couple of the jobs that I booked were e-learning and long.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And I also was in New York City this week a couple of times doing an acting thing. And I was like, but like, so now I figure once this is over, once this, all the tulips that have popped, I got to get back to eating. Like, I got to get back to laying the foundation. And I think that some people, specifically Elena and Jenna, have really figured out how to make sure that they're peppering in those auditions along with their jobs, and to keep it flowing. I think that's how you do it. And I'm definitely still figuring that out. Yeah, definitely trying to figure that one out. Because like today, I haven't done a single audition. I've just done the jobs I was working on. So
Yeah, so for the two things on top of that, you have had a lot of wins lately, and I've also seen you within the group having those nothing's coming through right now. So when you get these wins, what is the way that you stay motivated, and how do you stay motivated is what I'm asking, I guess.
I stay motivated when I'm not getting things, or how do I stay motivated when I have gotten things?
Yeah, that sounds good. Both of those.
Yeah, I think when I'm not getting things, the way I stay motivated is I think back to the fact that in theater, I would die for auditions. And here they are. So do them. And even when there's like 6, it's like, okay, do those 6 auditions. Like, and I just come from a place of like, holy cow, gratitude that there are these auditions in the first place. And so I think that's how I stay motivated in that regard. I think when it comes to like the ones that I've gotten recently, I was really like, honestly, like overwhelmed. And it was almost like a little bit like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like all of a sudden the imposter syndrome just came in like full force, because I was like, you guys don't understand. I don't really know how to do this. And it's like, your back of your mind is going, yes, you do. You know how to do this. You got the job. It's like, no, I don't know how to do it. And so I think it was like, I had to just be like, do the work, sit down and do the job, and then go on a walk and try not to have an anxiety attack. But yeah, I think just trying to foot to ground over and over again, and focusing on just like trying to keep moving.
So much of this journey really is just you take a step and stabilize, get balanced, but keep taking the next step, because the auditions, maybe you had a spurt of them, or maybe they've dried up for a time, but maybe your samples need to get updated, and there's always space to take steps. I'm in that space right now where I'm not getting a lot of auditions, but I need to update them, and I'm like, how do I find motivation? Getting myself motivated to do that thing, because I know what that's going to do for me. I know more opportunity comes.
No, but it's true. I mean, it's not easy to stay motivated when you hit I haven't booked in weeks. Like it gets to be like, does no one like me? And I told my therapist this was like a couple weeks ago, that voiceover is like ding, 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 ding. And like the moment you're done being happy, you're sad because it's over. And you're like, when's the next one gonna be? And like, it's just such a roller coaster. And the way we talked about it is, you kind of, if you see a graph like that, if you back up really far, it really just looks like a straight line.
Yeah.
And I kind of was helpful for me to be like, in those times that I'm like, ugh, it's just to like back out and realize that it's all part of the journey. And it's, as long as you keep a cool mindset, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, it's so tough to see that cool mindset in the midst of those down moments. But ooh, it's good to really have that on the tool belt in those down moments, because follow the trend, not the current moment. Follow the trend. That's good for me to keep in mind, because I'm in one of those moments where it's like, nobody's giving me a short list right now, and
Yeah, I mean, we have all so seriously been there, and it's, ugh. I also realized recently that I wasn't using social media, which is the internet's resume, as much as I could have been. And I was like, I took a class in New York City. It was for theater, but it was very much talking about like, every single person has your resume and your work experience in their pocket all the time with like Instagram and TikTok. All they have to do is like, oh, Hannah Parke? Yeah. Oh, here's her stuff. Like, and to use your Instagram and your social media or whatever, if you want to, as a way of like showcasing your demos or jobs that you completed in the past. And when I really started doing that, I had two different people connect me with jobs. And they were like, hey, I have a company that I work with or I know the person of, and they can't seem to get a reliable voiceover artist. And I mentioned you because I seen your stuff on Instagram. Can I send them your email? And I was like, yes, yes, please, dear God. But that's yeah, but that's how I got the ongoing Regal gig, is because it's, you know, someone I know works for them and was like, it's funny because I had worked for Regal in a regular commercial like years ago, and so it's like a different thing. But they were like, yeah, you do voiceover. We can't get a person to do this weekly gig. And I mean, I can't speak for everybody in voiceover, but man, do we love reoccurring gigs. So I was just like, yes, I'm here. Please, thank you. Yes. So I think it's cool when like I guess I'm just trying to use social media more so that people know that that's what I do. So when it's like, oh, voiceover artist, who do I know does that? Hannah does. I'm like, oh, I want that. I want that.
So how has that shown up for you in your social medias? I've seen you a lot more active on Instagram, and how is that really showing up for you, I guess? Or what is your method with it?
For a while, I got off of Instagram completely because I had no rules for myself, and I would just, what do you call it, like zombie scroll for like hours, and I would be filled up with things that I wasn't getting, and it made me sad. And then I realized that I can post my own things without doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And it's just about kind of, for me, like setting boundaries. So I just I've seen, you know, people like Jenna like use and Morgan use their social media as a way to showcase I'm working and here are the things I'm doing. Hire me. And I see especially Morgan just use Instagram so to her whatever the word is, like, and I was like, I could do that. Like, I could post a video of myself talking in my booth for 5 seconds. Oh, okay. And like, it's free. So, you know, so yeah, I guess I just kind of have been trying some things out, and then also realizing to not be comparing myself to other people, you know, and just trying to find that balance.
How have you fought that? Do you find yourself still instinctively trying to compare, or do you have a method of pushing against that? Like, how do you avoid that? Because that's tough.
I think it's funny because it's a little different for theater and voiceover. For some odd reason, I guess because I started in voiceover with it being such a community, when I see that someone's posted a job that they got, I'm like, oh, cool. And that in a way, it makes me be like, they did it, so can I. And I think what I get in trouble with is looking people on Broadway and people who are booking things in theater and being like, why am I not getting it? And it's literally just a change of perception, a mindset change.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely trying to work on looking at other people getting, you know, booking things and being like, yes, look at you. That just means that us regular Joes can do it. And I'm excited to make that switch in the theater world as well. I feel like for a long time, my Instagram was just, you know, before I took my several month break, was just, you know, videos of me singing at like cabaret gigs and stuff like that. And I figured like, cool, I can just pepper in that with the voiceover stuff, and my Instagram can just be like me doing the things that make me happy, which is performing, you know?
Yeah.
So I find myself in this place where in a range, there are so many times where I'm feeling my best, the most enjoyable, not putting it on like a good, bad scale in any way, but I enjoy voiceover so much more when I'm celebrating the hell out of the people, because I am genuinely, to the depths of my soul, excited for the things that they're booking. And in Encanto, there's the opening song where she's just sort of my family and like so excited describing her family. But then the next song is just I'm not fine, I'm not fine. And that's where I find myself swinging sometimes between this I can't move the mountains. Where's my miracle? And I'm trying to get out of those moments, out of those swings, but it's quite challenging and exhausting. And it's this almost duality to it. I am so deeply, genuinely excited for the people who are booking, but also I'm not getting it. So how do you keep that perspective? Because it is incredibly admirable.
It was, some sort of master class or something. I wish I remember who it was. It was some, famous Broadway person. And they said when they first got started, people started booking things and that looked like them. They're similar type. And they were like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Like they're taking jobs away from me and whatever. And they realized, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start hyping these people up. And I'm going to trick myself into believing that until it turns real. And I was like, what an interesting thought. But it's true because when I see other people in the voiceover community, I share their jobs all the time. I'm like, yes, you go, Glen Coco, you go. And I realize what I need to be doing in the theater world is I need to be doing the same thing. I need to be boosting these people's things, and because it's all the same, and it puts me in a place of gratitude and out of a place of scarcity. And it's so easier said than done. But the more I put myself in gratitude, the better my life is. Yeah. And the more I get out of that scarcity mindset, and it's the same picture. It's just the filter that's on it. And I think I've found in my life has literally become so much better since I've been actively trying to come from a place of daily gratitude.
It's deep. You really hit us with some philosophical knowledge here, because I think to my tactics in the different social medias I find myself on, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and almost exclusively, I do try to exude positivity, celebrate people. However, I have done for a lack of better terms, a really shit job at actually sharing what my peers who I'm genuinely excited for, have done. Because it felt almost like a betrayal of my skill, my talent, because I'm not sharing things I've booked or posted. So I think it was just a place where I was kind of allowing a foothold on me, one that just kept me from fully celebrating what the people around me who I'm genuinely excited for are doing. And I think I need to create a rule that says I am going to share this because I want to elevate the people around me. In my last episode, if anybody's listening to this in order, we had Elena, and she was processing through business things there. And this is kind of what I'm doing. You have me processing a bit of my business and like, how can I do this differently based on this conversation? So, how can I show more gratitude? Because it's so important to express the gratitude.
I think it's like the growing up in a faith-driven family, for sure. I think there's just that idea of of gratitude. But I think that when you're looking at through those eyes, yeah, you get to get ahead of some of that like icky feeling, because the icky feeling is natural. It's so gonna be there regardless.
For sure.
It's how you have those feelings, you let those feelings happen, and you go, okay. Now, how can I move on from these? I let myself have them. I let myself be jealous. I let myself be mad. I let myself be disappointed. And now I'm like, all right, let's go on a walk and let's drink a cup of coffee and let's just try to get out of this headspace. And it's definitely, in my opinion, something that you just have to absolutely like work on every single moment. And I think some days I'm at like an 8, and the next day I'm back at a 2. And then I'm at 2, 2, 2, 2, 8, 9, and it just like, but it's just, it's an everyday thing. But I think the more you focus on it, the better you just literally feel.
Yeah, it kind of offers you that space to just give yourself more forgiveness in those moments. I like that. I like that.
Green-eyed monster lives within us all, and it's, he's never going away. Mine's a boy. His name's Jake. I'm just making that up. I feel like, it's how we deal with our green-eyed monster. He's gonna be there. We put him on a leash, and we let him out sometimes when he needs to, and we put him away when he doesn't need to be there. His name is Jake, and he's like, Hannah. He's like, what the heck, man? Why are these people getting it? We're not. And he's like really annoying. I'm like, shut up, Jake. I'm excited for them. I think that would be mine.
I like that. That's good. So, talking to your green-eyed monster, taking moments to experience gratitude, those are great ways to just keep you in it, keep it motivated when you're winging it. Is there ever been a time where you said, you know what, I've winged it as far as I can? Have you ever switched track and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have to go this way instead?
No. And I get asked that question as a performer, like my entire life. Like, oh, is there ever a time in your life that you just didn't want to perform anymore and you thought about not doing it? The absolute answer from the depths of my heart is no. I've never, and I think that's the thing, even when I'm like seizing my ass off, like not being able to like get out of bed, like it was like, well, then I'll find a new avenue to be able to perform. Like, I think the times in my life that I am most wholly alive is when and it's obviously a little bit more than like on stage than behind the mic, but kind of, but that's kind of the same thing. But, and I think when the idea of performing has maybe like been like, oh, maybe I won't be able to do it, that now I have to remember every time that I get to do it, like, what a blessing. This is so cool. This could have been something that I wasn't able to do anymore. And yeah. And I think too, in the way that you do it in a way that I really aspire to is that, oh, things are not coming in this avenue. I'll make my own avenue. I'll start doing this. I'll start a podcast. I'll direct network people, or I'll coach people. I'll whatever. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. To me, for a long time, I was just like, my auditions are not coming. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then I started figuring out other stuff, other ways to perform. And yeah. It was a long-winded way of answering that.
No. I really loved that because something that's very much a cultural conversation right now is the question of identity and what does that mean for each individual person and how do you respect someone's identity? And this kind of picks apart and peels back. My identity is 100% in the way I do things, and I'm never not gonna be animated. And one of the things I said in my last place of employment, I said a lot, was my favorite thing is to be a caricature of myself. I want to be this big personality, even though I'm the most introverted to myself individual in so many ways. When I'm in a social setting, I'm gonna be this hello, big head, smiling, big ears, the long hair. Everything about me is that big, and it's such a part of my identity now that I find myself. It's both invigorating, absolutely exciting, and so life-giving. But then there's also that space where if I'm not booking the jobs, then my identity is now in question. But it doesn't change that my desire to be that character, even if it's not necessarily making me money for the things that I'm doing. But I just want people to know that guy because I think he's pretty cool.
I don't know that I could have ever spoken that exact same thing in the way that you have, because boy, is that my entire life. I definitely have, I feel like, yeah, everything I do is a comedy routine. Like, I have to make it, like, it's all, I'm performing all the time, but it's because that's what makes me, it's not, and it doesn't mean that's not who I really am. I'm a natural, like you, just a natural clown. And like, and I, and I don't know if it's ever happened to you in your life, but there are some people who hate all the energy and they hate all of the confidence and they hate all the, but like, that's what you're getting. Like, that's what it is. And it took me a long time to be like, this is who I am. I'm not gonna back down from being this overly energetic person. And now it's like, and now people are paying me for it. So go away. Like, and every day I'm learning more about the fact that it's okay, to be this performer, energetic person. And also, just because I'm not booking doesn't mean that's not still who I am. Even if that's in front of a mirror with a hairbrush singing the waitress song. Like, it's like, I know that I have to be creative in my own time then. And that's just, I mean, I guess I pass that along to everybody. It's like, just because you're not getting paid for it doesn't mean you're not. Go find an open mic. Go talk to a nonprofit about doing stuff for them. Like, get it out, even if it's like fake demos. Because just because you're not being paid for it or it's not going on your resume doesn't take away from the fact that you're a performer at heart.
Yeah, I love that because it's so much of the, you can't tell me who I'm gonna be because I'm just gonna be me. And if I say I'm gonna do something and you say, no, that's gonna be a bad idea for your business, but it's not gonna be a bad idea for my soul because otherwise it's just gonna build the critical mass and explode out of me and I can't explain why.
Yep. Touché. I know exactly that feeling.
So we have talked about so many things, so many amazing things. I'm so excited that you're on this episode. This is where I like to offer a space for, in the conversation, to give the guest the opportunity to promote yourself, be your own commercial. I say this so much on the podcast, people are going to be so tired of hearing it. But this is, have you seen Hot Ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take that camera and tell us, yay!
Okay, yes. That is this moment. This camera. Let the people know what you got going on in your life.
Yeah. What's going on in my life is what I call my new era. Post all of these, so this is my first year AI, because I've got a machine in my head now that is like that makes it so I don't have seizures. And I had to really restart, but in my new fucking Taylor Swift era, like my new era. And I think when you start a new era, I keep thinking of it like an empty garden bed. And right now, I very much, because I took a lot of time off, I had to really restart in theater. Obviously, just restarted or started for the first time in voiceover. And the period of time I'm in right now is absolutely hoeing the land and picking out the weeds of that's the ideas of scarcity and that I'm not good enough and fear, getting all that stuff out of there, tilling it all up and planting all of these seeds, which is, to me, is redoing my demos, redoing my reels for theater, doing all of these cabarets, doing all these auditions. And then that's just the phase of life that I'm in, because yeah, I've got some cool commercials coming out and whatever, but to me, the pitch about me is that, man, I am in my growth process right now of the new Hannah Parke, and I'm just so absolutely grateful that I live in this time and this place where I'm allowed to do that, and I'm allowed to be like, this is it. This is me. And I have excitement and optimism for the next phases of my life. Because I get to, And there were so many times that I was like, am I gonna get to do this? And I'm actually doing a Fringe show this year. It's a theater thing, but my musical called Birth, Sparkle, Death, which is it's a musical about one woman show about dealing with the 5 stages of grief through the eyes of epilepsy. So that's kind of, so I guess my what I'm doing next is that, and then just working on whatever projects want me. So yeah.
I'm gonna wrap it up here, but tell me more about this show, because is this gonna be some places live where people can see?
In 2021, when like the world was not back in any sort of way, I created a short film that was in the Philadelphia Theater Week. That was called Birth, Sparkle, Death, and it was it was very much on in the same spectrum of like Inside by Bo Burnham, completely done by myself. I just made this, whole thing, and it turned out so flippin' cool, and I got to show it, but it was all online because we all weren't in theaters yet, and so it was like you could like download it and stuff, and it's really cool. And I've reached out to a couple companies and I'm waiting to hear back. I can totally self-produce it. I have another musical that I self-produced in 2018 that was in the Philly Fringe Festival, called Close Your Legs, Honey. It's about child pageantry, which is great. But with this one, I'll wait to hear back if I am like dual billed, and like with a company, or if I'm just gonna straight up do it by myself. But it'll be me performing the show in front of the short film.
Hannah, you get more interesting every single time we talk, and I want to see this so freaking bad. I'm so excited for you.
It's funny. It's pretty. Everyone who watched it in my family was like, "This is so hard to watch," because it's all about. It was pre-surgery. Is it? Am I gonna have a brain? And it's all pretty much like a story to your brain, like, why won't you work, and like why have you taken everything away from me? And so and there'll be some cool rewrites too, now that I had 4 surgeries and now I'm on the quote unquote up and up. We shall see. So it's definitely a piece written in a time of what like why is really the word. This one is also very weird because it's a little, if you know the band Grimes, it's like, it's very it's not regular musical theater. It's like musical theater meets like techno funk soul. It's weird. Okay. So I think I like that it doesn't really have a category of its own, and I composed the whole thing. So I now have an active presence on Instagram, and it's at the Hannah Parke. That'll be in the show notes, but my last name has an E on the end because I'm Southern. And yeah, all my stuff's on my website, which is just hannahparke with an E on the end.com. And always on the Discord. Find me on the Scrappy
Always on the Discord. If you guys are not convinced yet, the last, 5 episodes, we've had people just the coolest people. It is literally the coolest place ever. Well, thank you again so much for being here, and wow, I have been intrigued with your journey for so long, and to get to hear all these things more specifically and succinctly, my brain is now swimming with the possibilities of what can I do differently, because I've received such inspirational information from you so frequently within our group, within your socials, and I'm excited that you got to be here.
I just think it's so cool the people that you've asked to be on this podcast are so great, and to even be amongst them is bigger than I can even handle with excitement. And I think I don't want you to not see that the fact that you started this podcast, how many people say, I'm going to start a podcast, and then never do it. And the fact that you're not only are you doing a podcast about something that you love, you're using your voice to bring on other people who are also trying to do it. And there's just not a lot of people who are able to do it. So you're a freaking rock star, and always the kindest, most giving person. It's a shame we've never been able to hug in real life. I'm so grateful that you let me be on here, and I just feel like it was so cool that we just got to chat for the last hour. It's just so cool. I thought I was gonna be way more nervous, and I'm like, no, this rocks.